Matt Porter's in the studio with me. He runs Matt Porter Web Design at Innovation Martlesham at Adastral Park. And I know it's about coding.
It is, that's right, yeah.
And Etaly was very rude to me. Well, she was a bit cheeky to me on breakfast, and she said to me, I bet you don't know what coding is.
Right.
But I actually do, and I said I would say why I knew, and that's because Dan, my elder son, last year was involved in a project in America where they're big on coding and getting the girls to do computer coding.
Yeah.
And they found a way of promoting it across the big national Christmas tree for America outside the White House.
Yeah.
Had a ring of Christmas trees, 2 or 3 rings of Christmas trees around it, smaller ones, which were representing each state.
Right, yeah.
And each state in America had a team of girls of about 11, 12, something like that, whose job was to code the lights on the tree for different patterns. So every tree had different colour Christmas lights, making different patterns.
Right.
And it was done through computer coding. And my son went over and worked on the White House lawn, sorting it all out,
Very
the technical
good.
side.
Very impressive.
So that's the only thing I know about coding, that you use a computer program to make things happen and to do things.
Yeah, I mean, coding is kind of the newer terminology. When I was at school, it was computer programming. So coding, programming, it's the same thing. So basically what's happened is the national curriculum has changed recently, I think 2014, which brought coding back into the curriculum because we've got a shortage of computer coders.
Particularly girls, apparently, in America,
Apparently
anyway.
so, yeah. But in the UK, because in the curriculum, the IT or ICT curriculum was about using Excel and using Word, and it was kind of office skills in some respects rather than learning how a computer works. So they've changed that now. We've got back to bringing coding back into the curriculum. And what I'm talking about today is the FUZE, which is a computer for schools. It's aimed at education, the educational market. It's very similar. Anybody who had a computer in the 80s, like a BBC Micro, it's very similar in look to that.
We've got one here. There's a keyboard as normal.
Yeah, and it's an aluminium case, so it's very strong.
Bright red, kids would like that.
Yeah, there is one that's coloured like the BBC Model B, and what it has is inside to drive it is a Raspberry Pi computer. The Raspberry Pi computer is a very, very low cost computer that was developed a few years ago. They're about £25 to buy, but it's a fully working computer, but a tiny little thing, so this big. You've got one here, it's about the size of a credit card, but it has ports on there to plug things in into a network, HDMI for your television and things like that, and a memory card slot. That's all built into the FUZE, so it's based on the Raspberry Pi. It has an additional board on there called the IO board on top, which allows you to do electronics. So it's actually electronics test bed as well, so you can learn about electronics, learn about the logic of controlling electronics. So in this case, you see on my one here, I've got a red, amber and green lights on there.
You've got like a little sort of motherboard sort of thing,
on the breadboard it's called, like a little pin. You push all the components in there and wire them together. It's very straightforward to use, and I wrote a program on here which actually turns it into traffic lights, so it goes red, amber, green, amber, red,
what a sense of achievement.
It was good fun, actually, and it was based really because last week we were talking about the traffic light system around Ipswich, and people were complaining about it, so I thought, well, why don't I try and help, and I'll rewrite it on the FUZE on the Raspberry Pi. So this was about 3 hours of me tinkering around, really, where I basically has a piece of software. When you boot it up, it's a bit like Windows. It's got a graphical interface with icons and things like that, and there's language on it. It's called FUZE BASIC.
This is BBC Radio Suffolk. I'm Rachel, sitting in for Mark Murphy. We're going to have destination location in the next hour of the programme. Today it's Mexico. So if you've been to Mexico, I would love to hear why you ended up there and what tips you'd pass on for those. Is it a good holiday destination? Do let us know. 01473212121. At the moment, though, we're talking to Mark Porter, who's our gadget man. He's in the studio, and we're we're talking about this computer targeted at schools. It's called the FUZE, and it's to learn coding, which we knew as programming, and they've reintroduced it.
That's right,
back into the curriculum. So this little box of tricks that you've got there, you've been able to do a program for the traffic light sequence.
Yes.
Is it the sort of thing that people would have at home, or is it just for schools?
I think so. I think as an educational device, it's a great idea. It really is for people that want to, hobbyists and that kind of thing, when they want to learn about electronics. And basically with the FUZE, you get an electronics kit. So it's like a big box of different components, such as different coloured LEDs, resistors, there's switches, and there's also a little analog light detector. I can't think of the exact word, but basically analog meaning it will detect different levels of light and produce a number corresponding to that, so you can actually write a program that interrogates how bright the light is in the room and things like that if someone opens the door.
Is it the sort of thing kids would have a Christmas present, or you do need a more technical parent?
It's aimed specifically at... Not necessarily, I don't think so. It's really very straightforward. There's 2 books that come with it that are really well written, very, very, very nicely presented, very easy to follow. The instructions are exceptionally easy. It's aimed at young people who are learning to code.
Older teenagers, something like younger teenagers.
I think younger, yeah. It's
ones.
school, so it's aimed at the curriculum. So we have, apparently there's 300 schools in the UK currently have these in there, using them in their curriculum. So it's definitely something. When I was at school, computer studies had only just started, and they had a RML 380Z computer in there, which is a great big computer, very, very simple the way that it worked, but we all shared. We all had a go at sharing time on that. It was a bit like timeshare.
So how much are these?
These are between 120 and 170 pounds.
And that actually isn't an awful lot.
It's not a great deal
for school, is it?
It's not a great deal.
No.
You actually do have a fully functioning computer here. It's not like a something that's have to plug in to make it work. It is
so
when
would
it
there
boots
be
up.
a screen would go on it as well?
It's got basically on the back is an HDMI socket, and you plug that into your television. No, you plug it into your television, a TV at home. So it's got HDMI socket, it's got a network socket there, so you plug it into your home network, and it's got USB for mouse that comes with it, or anything else, memory card, wireless card, whatever.
So Matt, if the kids come home from school, children, grandchildren, whatever it might be, and talk about their FUZE computer and how they're doing coding, we now know what they're talking about.
If they're interested in learning coding, or their parents want them to learn coding, then perhaps get them to speak to their school and say, what is this FUZE? Because it sounds great.
Fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for coming in today. Matt Porter, Gadget Man.